heads up.
Okay.
It says we're live.
All right.
All right. Let's see if we have people joining. Hopefully someone joins. But it's okay, it's recorded, so. We're supposed to hit like low 50s and low 70s this week. So Eric and I are really excited.
That's going to be really nice.
It's going to be
That's
nice.
like a good week to get stuff done.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
miss that weather. It is hot now.
It's just the time of year where I'm like, I wish we could just skip July and August and go on. And then you just have to get through September and a little bit of October, and then it's the holidays again.
I know. When I was planting dahlias last night, I'm like, these are for September. Like, this is, thank God, it's so hot here.
Good morning, everyone. We've got a couple of people in the chat. Hey, Claire, Homesteading Hustle. Good morning. Melanie, good to see you guys. I just left your most recent video to watch this live.
So good.
My friend Crane just posted his video and I started watching. I was like, I have to leave to go to my live, but I can't wait to watch the rest of it. Yeah. So he has the clip of when I went over Memorial Day in that video. So it's like a weekly vlog, but he's trying to do this like classical arrangement. I'm like, I don't even know what's going on. So I just need like real time dedicated to watching that.
I know. I need to go watch it. I haven't watched it yet.
I'll go back to it. No worries. All right, it's 10 a.m. As usual, we have a very, very packed outline that we hope to get through. And this one I think should be really interesting for everyone because Jordan's in consulting right now. I used to be in consulting, and one common practice that we always did after a project was something called a postmortem, which is where you reflect back on your project to talk about the things that went right, the things that went wrong, and hopefully improve for the next time. So Jordan and I informally have postmortems all the time after some sort of event, even after a certain crop. And so this is a culmination of all the stuff that happened in spring. But I think more importantly, we want to spend some time up front talking a little bit more about creating that retail following. So a local following to buy flowers if you're not selling to florists, because a lot of you guys are newer growers or just newer to flower farming. And I know that it's a really big challenge in the beginning to get those first few sales. How do you build up that momentum? And Jordan is in a prime spot to talk about this. So just to give you, Jordan, why don't you introduce yourself? Because we always get that question.
Hey guys, I am Jordan. I own Jordan's Flower Farm. I'm located in Oklahoma, and we sell wholesale to local florists in our area. And then we also have a farm stand on our property where we sell weekly retail bouquets.
Yes, and so what Jordan didn't mention is that she moved farms. So she moved farms, when was it, Jordan?
So September of last year.
September of last year, after already putting in infrastructure in the form of landscape fabric, a lot of perennials. She ended up moving, and I think that ultimately she's happier with where they ended up with. It's just a much better town. It's closer to their home, closer to the school district that her kids are in. So I know that that was like a really big factor in terms of just commute time. But what that means is that Jordan is off farm, and she had to rebuild this local presence because you're about like 45, 50 minutes away from the old site. Is that right?
We're about 55 minutes from the old farm.
Yeah. So far enough where your prior customers, your retail customers are probably not going to come here, but you put in a farm stand, right? And you named her
Buttercup. So we have it's like the cutest little like buttercup yellow. And so I just thought from like a marketing perspective, it's much more fun for our customers to be like, oh, I'm going to Buttercup today. And like, they'll be like, I mean, I've had customers be like, can we like get a picture with Buttercup? And so it's just like a good like marketing tactic of like, rather than just being like, we have our farm stand, it's like, we have Buttercup, the flower shed, And so eventually like we'll paint the name on it and make it real cute. But yeah, I think customers just love that. Like they just love calling it that. And I call it that in like every post we make.
Yeah. And so I'm going to put a video of Buttercup on, but Jordan, can you tell us about how you built Buttercup's following?
Yeah. So I would say, so we started building Buttercup's following in March when we opened the farm stand at our new property. So in March, if you've listened to any of our lives, you'll know that we had just an influx of tulips with like no outlet to sell them at the time, just because of timing. A lot of things happened there to where we just didn't have anywhere to move them. So that was when we already had Buttercup, so we already had intentions of shifting to retail. But I thought it would be like a little slower and not our main focus. And I think that like influx of tulips really like drove pushing all of our sales through Buttercup. So what I started doing was just I post on Facebook every single day. So I make sure to post a piece or two of content onto our Facebook feed every single day. And I'm always very like intentional about focusing on our like content pillars. So making sure that we're like showing our family, educating our customers about flowers, and then just like showing the flowers to them. So those are like the three things I'm always like trying to hit with our customers. So I think at the time when we started in March, we had maybe 1,000 Facebook followers. Because our focus in year one was not retail. Our focus was strictly wholesale. And so my whole focus was building our Instagram, but it really wasn't even like building a big following on Instagram. Like when you're selling wholesale, you're selling to like 10 to 20 florists. And so you don't really need this like big following. So that was not really, so my intention was just building like engagement with our florists on Instagram. And so this was a complete shift for us to then say like, okay, like we're gonna, I turn my cross posting off because it's two different audiences that I'm talking to. When I'm posting on Instagram, I'm talking to our florists. And when I'm posting on Facebook, I'm talking to our retail customers. And so it turned our cross posting off, and actually like started, because those 1,000 followers that we had on Facebook was just from like cross posting things that I was really posting for our florist. So turned that off, started focusing on really like building that relationship with our customers. So like thinking about when I'm posting of like, how do I make this relevant for our customers? How do I make them care about this? And like always trying to take whatever content I'm making and think about like, why would my customer care about this? So we took our Facebook following. So what, we're in June now, we're at like 3,800 followers on Facebook. So we've increased by whatever percentage that is. So from like 1,000 to 3,800 over that time period. And it has really helped build our Facebook following. So some of the things that we do to build that was, obviously being really intentional about posting regularly. You really have to be posting regularly. But the other thing that I did was
hold on, Jordon. What does regularly mean?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm posting every single day. I post to our feed. And then I also I'm not as good about it, but I'd like to have like a couple of stories every day. Not as good about that. I'm honestly just not that great at remembering to take pictures. So like one of the things you really have to think about is like when you're doing things, you have to pause and take pictures, so that you have a picture to go along with that content you're going to post. So that I think that skill comes with time. You'll start remembering to do that. So trying to like be in stories, and then I usually will do a reel like 3 times a week, and I only do reels really on our sales days, and I'm just like showing what's in Buttercup, and I'm really doing it from like an intentional standpoint of helping our customer know. I always do it from like our walking path. So we have like a gravel pathway up to Buttercup, and I want them to know like this is where I walk up, because we have, a high tunnel in the back, we have a greenhouse, we have Buttercup. And so I want them to know what does Buttercup look from the outside, and what do the flowers look like on the inside. So because we're still building our customer base, so it's not like we have we do have regular customers at this point, but a lot of our customers are new since we're newer. And so this might be their first time there. So on our sales days, I'm always doing a reel just to show them like, this is what it looks like. Here's where you go. Here's what the inside looks like, so that it can make them feel, I don't know, I'm kind of like an anxiety girly, and I would want to know, am I going to the right place? And so I think that just helps customers know. So we do a reel about 3 times a week because we're open 3 days a week.
That is super helpful. By the way, thanks to everyone who showed up. There's a bunch of Europeans here, which is really interesting and exciting to see you guys join. I know that what Jordon is saying is also going to be relevant for you guys, because she essentially is building her following on Facebook, which is obviously international. So Jordon, just to recap what you said in just like 5 minutes so far, you basically started anew. You went and took your Facebook following up to close to 4,000 followers right now. You guys can look for Jordon's page on Facebook and see what she's doing. One thing, I mean, Jordon, let me know if you disagree, but I don't think Jordon necessarily wants you to follow her because we're trying to keep her following local to Oklahoma. What do you guys call yourselves?
Oklahomans.
And that way it also helps the algorithm when she's posting so that she has that more local dedicated follower, right? And I think that's something that you
definitely post more like flower farmer content on Instagram.
Exactly. So follow her on Instagram if you want to see more flower farming content. But that's something that we often hear is that Instagram is not necessarily for your customers. Facebook is where you find your local following. And so Jordon and I do a lot to try to protect our Facebook pages to make sure that we're getting only local people who are following. It's fine if you're a flower farmer and following, but it's not our goal to make messaging and content that is for flower farmers. All right, so you got up to 4,000 followers and you post regularly every single day. I would say that if you look at some of her posts, she's even showing her planting out the dahlia fields right now. So she's really taking people into the journey of what it takes to get to the flowers that she gets to Buttercup. But Jordon, I think you were going to talk about how you got so many followers.
I got to 4,000.
Yeah. So what are the tips and tricks you have for that?
Yeah, let's talk about that because, okay, this sounds like so boring, but I have like one post that, I don't know, it just hits every time, guys. So, there's this one post that I will make in a Facebook group, and it's just introducing ourselves. I'm not trying to sell them anything. I'm just trying to tell them that we exist, right? And so obviously I'm trying to like gain a Facebook following. But so what I do is I'm looking for, so primarily when you start, like focus on one city, right? If you're starting a farm stand or trying to build a retail following and you're in one city. So my focus was the one city that our farm was in. So I went and found like the most active, well, all of them, but primarily focused on like the most active Facebook group that there was, where there was the largest following or the largest amount of people in that Facebook group. And then it's also an active one where people are actually, you're seeing posts in that group every day. And so we have this like one Facebook post that we'll make where I'm just like, hey guys, just want to introduce myself. I tell them about our family. I tell them, we're born and raised in Oklahoma. And then I post like 30 pictures of our farm, and it's like our 30, it's like I'm going to my favorite section on my iPhones, my 30 best pictures. And I'm including pictures of our family. I'm including pictures of the flowers. I'm including pictures of us doing things on the farm. I'm including a picture of Buttercup, right? Because I want them, that's always like one of the very first ones that I post. And that always goes really well. So one of the things, and I didn't know this for a long time, and I think this is a really like big tip, is when you're in those group and people like the post, you can click on the likes and you can invite them to your page. I honestly didn't know that for a really long time. And those posts will get like 500 likes on them. And so then you're able to take and invite all 500 of those people to like your page, and it's the city where your farm is located. And so this isn't anything like groundbreaking. This is just what we've done. So that was like what we focused on first.
So a couple of questions. Well, first about the thing with the like, that is a really, really good trick. It's something I forgot to even tell you about, Jordon, because I used to run ads on my soap company. And so when you have ads, you're scaling the reach, and therefore you get a lot more likes. And that's how I also really built a bigger following, just through inviting people back to follow the page.
Yeah.
But you said that you look at your town's most active Facebook pages. What is the name of the group for you, and how are you looking for these groups? Is it literally just entering the name of the city or town?
Enter the name of the city. Yeah, you just enter the name of this. You go to groups on Facebook, enter the name of the city, and just start scrolling through them. There'll be a lot of like buy sell trade groups from when that was like popular before Marketplace existed. Those I don't really get a whole lot from. But just like the community pages, and obviously like at this point, like I'm in all of them and I post to all of them, and on sale days I'm cross-posting my sale to the groups that will allow it. There's going to be groups that don't allow it. I'm fortunate that like the biggest group in our city allows me to post in it. So that is hugely important.
Yeah, so typically you've got moms groups, you got what's happening in this town group, you've got the general, like I've got a town called Somerville where I do a lot of business in. So just look for the city name and also just like a what's happening type of group. And those are typically ones where you can promote that you've got a sale going on, an event happening, so forth.
make sure you read the rules of the group, because the rules will
Yes.
tell you, like, you know, maybe there's only a certain day of the week that you can post.
Yes, that
So
is
that's
really
what we did.
common.
Yeah, so that's what we did first, right? I just focused on that city. That got us through spring. Spring is fantastic, obviously, for flowers. And so you move a ton of flowers in spring, and that was enough for us at the time. Now we've kind of hit that summertime like slump when sales slow down. And so with just the focusing on the one city, sales have slowed. And so now I think we have started focusing on other cities around our farm, because we're about 10-15 minutes outside of like a large metropolitan. Like Tulsa is a large city. I'm honestly like a little like fearful of even like trying to start marketing, because like, can we keep up with the volume if we were to get, you know, all the Tulsa customers coming? I don't know that we could. And so that actually isn't my focus first. I started focusing on some of the smaller cities around our farm. And so I think it's important to know, like, what is your customer look like? Like, what is that customer avatar? So Jessie knows, because I was sending her things as I was going through it. But one of the things that I was looking at is like, okay, like, what's the population size of the city around me? What is the median income of the consumers in that city? And so I was going through, and so I started targeting cities that way. So then I started adding ourselves to those Facebook groups and putting that post in there of like, hey, like, we're located 10 minutes from you. Like, yeah, we're not in your city, but we're super close to your city. So we've been doing that now. That has been successful. That increased us like another, I think, 1,000 followers over the last 3 weeks, because I started doing that just to try to help pick up sales, because sales have slowed for summer.
But I would say you're still getting consistent sales, and I think that's something that we need to talk about. But one thing that I really loved that you pointed out was being cognizant of what you are able to handle in terms of demand. I know that for you it's really important for you to scale quickly so you guys can get to that stage where you can meet that kind of demand. But obviously in year one, you're not going to be able to service the demand of all these people coming in from Tulsa. So you're cognizant of that. Now, let's talk a little bit about how you operate your farm stand, because you work a full-time job. Sometimes you need to travel, and I think it's just unrealistic for you or even me to try to pump out like 50 to 100 bouquets in a single night. It's just like you would burn out, right? So what's your method?
I couldn't do it. Yeah. So, you know, I think that sometimes there's farm stands that will do like one big drop. I can't make that work with my work schedule. So what works better for me is if we do smaller drops into our farm stand of like 20 bouquets on Friday, 20 bouquets on Saturday, 20 bouquets on Sunday, and do it that way, because I can handle working a full-time job, but then going to harvest and doing, you know, a quick harvest on Thursday and making bouquets on Thursday night, and then getting up we open our farm stand Fridays at 7. It's just so random, but guys, this is what works for me. And what I'm trying to focus on is like what works for me, but also works for our customers. And so what we do is we're open Friday at 7 a.m. and Friday is actually our busiest day. Saturday is not our busiest day. I just think that we get maybe a different customer base on Fridays, of like people that are coming at lunch on their work breaks, to like come by and get flowers before maybe they don't work in Sapulpa. That's where our farm's located. During, you know, maybe that's like where their place of business is, but that's not where they are on the weekend. I don't know, but we have a great like Friday following. And so I'll do like a drop on Fridays at 7 a.m. And so I get a couple people that come before work, and then I'll get like a rush at like 11:30. And then we're usually like pretty much sold out like by noon. So
But
that
it's
works
so
really
much more
well.
manageable, right? And it's one of those things where I think at the height you were bringing like 25 to 30 bouquets even on a given day.
Yeah.
And then now you're
During
pulling
spring,
back a
we were
little.
trying to do like 30 a day in there, and it was something like that. I can't remember the exact details, but now we're pulling back, just because it's slowing down, and that's fine. So I'm still trying to do like 15 to 20 a day, on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Just so we can kind of like hit our weekly sales goal, but just spread it out over the days. So Saturdays we open at 10 a.m. That works best for us because I want to have some time with my family in the morning. So that allows me to harvest on Friday night, and then be able to get up and make bouquets and still like not just feel like because I can make 15 to 20 in, 30 minutes now. Like I have finally gotten to where I can do them in like 2 minutes, which I know isn't like the best, but I was at 4 minutes, guys. So like it's so much better. And then we open on Sundays at noon, and Sundays are our slowest day. It's like the day where we're really just trying to get some customers because I just like added that. And so we're selling like maybe 5 on a Sunday. Like we're not selling very many on a Sunday right now. But I think that we could eventually build a following on Sundays. And so we just do a couple, and it's like, well, I'm going to be at the farm working anyway, so I might as well put a couple in the stand and slowly work on building that customer base.
That resonates with me so much because what I love about this is you are literally harvesting the night before, sometimes morning of,
Sometimes.
making those bouquets, and they're going right into the stand. So they're fresh, and you don't need a ton of cooler space for that. You're really turning over these bouquets pretty really quickly. Fast. And of course, during the week, you've got florist sales. So that's awesome because you've got a high volume of flowers coming in. But for me, because I primarily sell at the co-op once a week, I have this issue where it's, okay, I'm starting to run out of fridge space, but you're constantly turning over the flowers, which is really nice in my view.
Yeah. I think I just prefer them to be like as fresh as possible. It was funny, like when our zinnias started coming on, I told Jesse, I'm like, it was my first year to have like a good zinnia crop, because this is just our second year. For those who don't know, this is our second year flower farming. And so like last year we had really bad disease issues, really bad crop. And so when our zinnias started coming in, I'm like, you can't put them in the coolers. Like, what do I do with these guys? Like, because I'm just used to like harvesting everything like so fresh and it going right in. And so zinnias just kind of like threw me off, because like if I was harvesting them early, I couldn't even like put them in the cooler. And I was like, I don't. So now I just prefer like, we'll harvest the night before. I'm kind of getting a little bit better to where I'm harvesting enough on Thursday to where I have them for Friday and Saturday. And then I just have to do a little harvest like on Sunday morning before the stand opens at noon. It just seems to work. This is what is working. It was funny because I talked to someone the other day and they were like, you just seem so much more relaxed now. And I am. Like, this has really like shifted. Like life update. We quit the farmer's market. Like, that's, I guess I haven't talked about that. The farm stand was doing so well, and trying to keep up with the farm stand, florist sales, and the farmer's market, I realized almost immediately that it was just way too much for me. I just couldn't do it.
On top of the fact that you travel, like you're traveling tomorrow and Tuesday, so.
Yeah. It was just too much, like between work, 4 kids, my oldest is graduating high school this year, and so it was just so busy. I just couldn't do it. And the farm stand, I want to be able to focus on one thing and get really good at one thing. Which I think that it's okay in the beginning to like dabble a little bit in everything and figure out what you like. But what I figured out is that I really enjoy like the on-farm more than the off-farm. And so, I just really want to focus on it and get good at it. We're still doing wholesale. But the farm stand is like my focus right now.
Yeah. And on farm, you mean just having sales on your farm, whether it's through a farm stand, it's through an experience like a workshop, a U-pick. That's kind of the direction you want to go in. For me, I'm going the opposite direction. My property is just not set up in a way that can handle that kind of traffic. And because it's not optimized for that, I don't want people showing up. And I always remember Nicole from Flower Hill Farm saying that people would just show up to her door thinking that it was a public farm, and that's just not something I want. So it's funny because Jordon has a big enough property where she can do it in a way that still maintains her privacy. I'm not, and I think most of you guys out there probably also don't have 10 acres, right? So it's something to be mindful about, right?
Yeah, and we don't live there. So it's like my house isn't there right now, and so I don't have that. But am I thinking ahead to that? Like, I bought 2 trees yesterday that are going to be like 50 foot by 20 foot wide. And am I like strategically thinking of like, how do I place these so that my house, when my house is there, is very separate? But we're fortunate that like our farm's big enough that we have like a retail space, then we'll like have where our house is, and then our production farm's in the back. So I feel like it's like spread out enough that customers won't be like right on top of us. Yep. And we'll put some like fences in, because fences make happy people, right? Like good neighbors.
Definitely.
So we'll make sure that we have some separation. But yeah, I definitely want to focus on like on farm. So like workshops. But for this year, I'm just focusing on the on farm stand. And then, then we'll start adding in more workshops. I just had to force myself to slow down a little for my health. I was, struggling to keep up with all of it.
Exactly. Let us know in the chat if you guys have any questions. This isn't really just related to building a following for your farm stand. This is related to building just a following for you and for local flowers that you offer. Because what Jordon is saying here is completely transferable to you, even if you don't have a farm stand. So please let us know if you have any questions in the comments. Jordon, there's one other thing that I want to talk about before we talk about flowers, which is this graphic that you put together. I'm very impressed. You even put it on your Facebook to educate your customers. But I want you to talk through this because I know you were inspired by Lenny Larkin, who also had a flower dollar chart. Yours looks a little bit different. Talk us through your pie.
Yeah, so I used the same exact categories that she has, and I just took all of our farm expenses for the year and said, like, where are they going? And so I took, my categories that I use are a little bit more detailed than the one she does, but I like took our categories and placed them in there just to see like what does it look like right now. And so, we've been incredibly transparent anytime I've talked on here or we've talked with anyone that our focus is not profitability right now. Am I cognizant of wanting to be profitable? Absolutely. But at our farm, I'm very much focused on livability. Meaning I want to build a farm that we can have a livable income from. And so I'm focused on, really building something bigger. And so, our farm supply costs and our infrastructure costs are 80% of our expenses right now, right? And so we're not, or 80% of every dollar. So we're not focused on, or we're not taking a profit, obviously. And so that's going to shift over time. Like when you think about farm supplies and it having our bulbs, seeds, compost, corms, plugs, all of that in it, we're investing in peonies right now. We're investing in dahlias that we plan to perennialize. We're investing in woody shrubs. And so those are extremely expensive things. And so basically any time we're making a sale, and I always am pricing to be profitable, but all of that profit is just going right back into the business right now.
Let's actually stop there for a hot second because I think this is really important to distinguish. We talked about Jordon's farm size, obviously big in the scale compared to a lot of the people who I even work with at the cooperative who are growers, myself. Jordon, when I think about her, she has more of this startup type of mentality where I'm going to really put a lot of capital and investment upfront so that I can scale as quickly as possible and potentially go full time on this, but have a livable wage to be able to go full time, right? So what that means is that it's high risk, high reward. High risk because you're putting a lot of money, time, and effort, and you're also trying to build demand to meet the amount that you're putting in.
Yeah.
But the return is that maybe in 3 years, she gets to a state where she can actually quit her job and the farm can support her, right? Versus I think most other people take a more conservative approach, including myself. And I think I've been pretty transparent in that I'm a very new grower. Sometimes I don't even know where flower farming itself is going to be in my future in the next 10 years. So it's not something that I'm going to be spending a lot or all of my effort and extra money on, right? So I think it's just important for you to think about with both there's pros and cons. With me, let's say that 5 years down the road, I decide I want to quit and become a full-time flower farmer. Well, guess what? I don't have the infrastructure in place to be able to do that immediately. And then I have to build again from there, right? So there's no right or wrong here. It's just a matter of where you want to go in the future.
Yeah, because, for me, if I decided I wanted to quit, we would have a massive loss at this point. And so we're definitely invested in our farm and we're investing our own funds into the farm, right? This is not all coming from farm profits.
Yep, and I realized that pie was just over my face as I was talking, but I'm going to put the pie back up. So Jordon.
Yeah, so we have our land costs on there, which are making up 14%, admin costs making up 5%. Our biggest expenses are investing in crops right now. And so that is putting in, but what Jesse said is I'm focused on building a following right now that by the time these crops are producing 3 years from now, when we have thousands of hydrangeas and thousands of peonies, like I'm hopeful that we'll have a big enough following that can support that. A farm stand's not going to be able to support everything that we planted. It was fun because I had another flower farmer out to the farm this week and she looked at me and she was like, but like, you're going to have to wholesale too. I'm like, yeah, no, I know. Like, we're building it so big that like we'll be wholesaling and we will be, doing our farm stand too. And so my hope is that we are building a big enough following that like by the time these crops are really into production, we will have a following that supports it. And that is risky. It's risky, it's scary. You have to have a high level and tolerance for risk to be able to do something like this, because it's not the way that you have to do it. Like, it's just the way that we've chosen to do it. But I think there are other farmers that have chosen to do it this way. Like when I think about like Moonshot, like, I think this is very similar to what she did. She worked a full-time job and she funded it and she built the infrastructure before she left her job. And so that's a farm that like I'm definitely like I look to and like want to emulate long term, because she's built it in a very like successful way, but very similar to like how we're trying to build it.
I would say she probably put in more money than you did at this point. I'm actually touring their farm as a part of the ASCFG regional conference. I'm super, super excited. But yeah, I think, are they year 4 or year 5? It's insane how quickly they built, scaled up, and what they're doing right now.
But I think that there is like a huge demand for flowers. And so I don't think that like what we're building is wrong. I think the demand will be there. I see what the local florists, how busy that they are. And so I think that like once these crops come in, they will pay off. It's just a really large investment in the beginning. And it's a little scary in the beginning, but this is just how we've chosen to do it. You'll see our labor costs are super low. That is because obviously we're not paying ourselves right now. So we do have part-time help on the farm. So we're really fortunate that we have a great relationship with my ex-husband, and he likes to come help us on the farm. And so he comes out and helps pretty much every weekend, and we pay him to come help us. And then when we have like really big planting projects, like let's say we were going to plant like a peony field, like it's incredibly worth it if you need to like plant a field of peonies to, pay someone $20 an hour and get some like really big, strong men out there to come help you. Absolutely worth it for like, I can't tell y'all enough how much it's worth it. We had people come help us when we did our like woody shrub planting, and it was incredibly helpful. And so we have a really low like labor cost right now. And so, I anticipate like right now infrastructure and farm supplies are making up 80%. I anticipate that like, reducing by 40% or 40 to 50% in the next like 2 years. And then we'll be able to like take a profit and actually like pay employees.
Yeah. I love how you're already getting part-time help. You're paying employees. I saw all of the woodies and shrubs that Jordon had come in. And then she's like, oh, I got help. They're all planted. I was like, what? Like, this would have taken you 3 weekends to do if it was just you like and your family.
We knocked it out because we had help, and they were incredible. I mean, so amazing. And I will tell you, just like woody shrub field update, we've been weeding it this week, just like going through and taking care of it. And like, we're having minimal loss. It is looking so good. So like we have it all on drip irrigation, but the plants are really thriving. We had like one row where we had, I would say like 20% loss. But it's really, really looking good. So they're growing so good.
That's exciting because you're going to be able to reap the benefits even next year from some of that stuff.
I know. Yeah, I think some of the shrubs, like probably next year we'll start being able to harvest like some of the more like foliage ones.
Yep. And then we have a comment here from Karen. My farm stand income has brought me electric wheelbarrow and lots of tools. So yeah, like, you don't have to be trying to build this to be a full-time livable type of wage. My goal is to pay for daycare. I pay like $2,000 a month for daycare for one child. Having a second child anywhere, but especially in the Northeast, is really difficult financially. So that's my goal. It's not a high goal, but I like to make $2,000 a profit a month to be able to do that. And even if it's $500 a month, I know for a lot of people that will make a huge difference. So don't discount how much flowers can actually bring in terms of supplemental income for you all. We have about half an hour left. Let's switch gears to flowers. So we're going to do like a high level discussion of just things that we really did well in from a flower perspective, and flowers we probably won't plant again. We already talked a little bit about tulips and daffodils before. So Jordan, do you want to focus more around some of the other stuff that came later afterwards? Why don't you start first?
Yeah, do we want to start with fillers?
Yes.
Buplorum was amazing for us. Did you grow up Buplorum?
I grew it last year.
Okay.
I didn't grow it this year, and I regretted it around Mother's Day. We have a person at the cooperative who grows great Buplorum, and it honestly doesn't move that well, so I don't know if I'm going to grow it.
It doesn't really move that well to florists. Yeah. You know what I thought would be fun as we're going through today is I know that you're like trying to identify the things that you want to like continue selling to florists. I feel like we should like chat about that as we go through each item.
Yes.
Because I also found that Buplorum didn't sell that well to florists, but I loved it for our retail bouquets. But I grew, y'all, I lost my mind. I grew like a 4-foot by 120-foot row of it. Like I don't need that much Buplorum. That's insane. So
you probably only need a third of that.
Well, I think like half of it. Like we really sold a lot of Buplorum in our farm stand because spring's so like crazy busy at the farm stand. So I think we'll do like 60 feet next year. But I also kind of want to try a tighter spacing because I did like a 9-inch spacing and that just seemed like too far apart. So I think I might try 6-inch spacing.
What I struggle with Buplorum is that there's this sweet spot where the yellow is this nice yellow, but then after a certain point when it matures, it becomes a little too gold, and I find that when you're pairing it in bouquets, it almost clashes a little bit. I don't know how to explain it. It just the yellow is not the right kind of yellow. Do you feel that way?
I just loved it.
More Buplorum for
I'm
Jordan.
like, I didn't mind that. I didn't find that. Or you know what it is I could have maybe just stopped harvesting at that point because maybe we go to the next one that I think of when I think of Buplorum, and so I'm going to pair them together. Saponaria. We grew that, and so probably, Jesse, I probably just quit harvesting the Buplorum at that point and moved on to the Saponaria because to me, guys, it gives that like same, like, you know how like Buplorum just feels like big and weighty and one stem takes up like a ton of space in a bouquet. So does Saponaria. But I liked it because because it's a flower. Instead of like Buplorum that's more of like fillery, like Saponaria feels like a flower. The only thing I'll say is I don't think the vase life is as good on Saponaria as Buplorum.
It's not, but the small flowers will continue opening.
Mm-hmm.
So from that standpoint, it actually has a decent vase life. I mean, you could probably get like 5 to 7 days out of it if you harvest a stem that has a bunch in different maturing stages. But customers, at least on Mother's Day, loved Saponaria. In fact, one person was like, "It's like Twinkle Bell."
Well, it's so
Twinkle
cute.
Bell,
yeah. So I probably didn't notice that on Buplorum, but just because I switched over to harvesting our Saponaria, I think at that point.
And Saponaria does really well for us, for florists. So I find that to be a versatile retail wholesale flower.
I was going to say the same is like that. I think is one that like can go both ways. Does really well with florists. Does really well retail, so it would be a good one I think for you to grow, and we direct seed that, so it makes it a low labor input for us.
What's your next one?
Loved Campanula. I just grew like a little small trial patch of it, like 5 stems and like a wrapped bouquet for retail was perfect. And then I was like popping them into like our vase arrangements, and I just thought it was amazing. I think I need to like be better about pest management for our Campanula because they were getting attacked, so like I couldn't harvest as much of it as I would have wanted to.
What were you getting on your Campanula?
I grew white. Say it again.
What were you getting on there in terms of pests?
So like our like most annoying pest here is cucumber beetles. Like they just attack everything. They have no like they just love everything. So I was getting cucumber beetles in them, but I was growing white. I just need to stop growing white things. So anyways, but for some reason our purple just kind of like failed. I don't know. It was like short. It just was not healthy. And so, yeah, next year I'll grow probably, or I know I'm growing just purple and pink, and then I'm just going to like get better at growing it. So I'll do a ton of research over the winter.
So I didn't grow it this year.
No.
But the people in my co-op grow it. So let me show you a photo. Actually, the Campanula, of course, is not in this photo. I think there's a couple on the side. It's in my community posts, but the Campanula was literally like 3-4 feet tall. It was insane. So if
And their
you
like stems are like thick and
they were
sturdy.
thick, so they were grown in high tunnels, which
Mm-hmm.
is the way to go, Jordan, for you.
Mm-hmm.
But grow the Champion series because they
Yes.
produce really, really well. So the pinks, the lavenders, and the whites all produce really well. I would say here you see thrips pressure on
Mm-hmm.
Campanula this time of year. But if you can
Yeah,
get
the
them,
thrips never made it over. We had a thrip issue on the other side of the tunnel, so they never made it over. Shockingly, I don't know how. But we have so many thrips that I'm like pretty good at spotting them at this point. You can't miss them. But yeah, they never made it over, but it was cucumber beetles attacking. So yeah, good to know about the thrips though, because I will have to watch for that.
yeah, but I think Campanula is another good versatile retail florist type
And
of
florist.
flower. And if you can grow it well, it can be super, super profitable because it is so prolific.
Yes, and for us, it bloomed for Mother's Day. So it can serve as a focal on Mother's Day before you have like your peonies. So if you don't have your peonies in production yet. So really important for us. Okay, last time we talked, I said that I was not going to grow feverfew anymore, but y'all, then the feverfew bloomed and I'm obsessed. Love it. We're growing like that single thing, I don't know what it's called, but the little cute
Magic.
flowery one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so cute. I love it. I'm
I
never
mean,
gonna not grow it.
I love the look of feverfew. I think it's such a dainty, like almost like a daisy, right? And
So
it's so
pretty.
prolific. And I literally just spent, it was only half an hour yesterday ripping on my feverfew.
I saw that
Because
on
I
your
have
post.
thrips
This
on
is
them.
sad.
So it'll be in my next video, by the way, about this. But long story short, I had thrips on my feverfew last year. I overwintered a few, like a very small patch. And when I was cutting it down to throw away, I was like, this would have been literally maybe like 6-7 bunches from just like a very, very small area. So it is so
Yeah.
prolific. And if you can get it pest free, it's such a good filler. But just not working for me, and I'm just not going to grow it. But what I am going to do is I'm going to cut it really, really low to the ground, and I'm going to give it an opportunity to give me a second flush. So last year I had cut it so low that I wasn't sure if it was going to come back and rebound, but it did, and I got some stems around the fall time period. So this year I'm not going to cut it as low, and I'm going to let it come back at a time when I'm not going to have thrips pressure because the weather will ultimately take care of it.
Oh, that's a good idea. But you
Yeah,
ripped
so
them
it's a bit
out.
of sunk cost here, fallacy, but I want some
I know.
feverfew.
I know they're so cute, and my customers are really loving them. I do you sell them? Do the florists love them? I
Oh my god,
haven't
the
had enough
florists
of
love
a
them.
florist
Last week, I think there were probably about like I don't know, like 15 extra bunches of
Oh,
feverfew, and
I
one
saw
florist
that
came in and was
picture.
just like taking them all in. I was like, oh, so yeah.
I saw that picture on because I follow your co-op now, and I was just like, oh my God, they had so much feverfew there.
And there's also the double feverfew. There's like I think Tetra is what it's called. It's like a double
Mhm.
white. It almost looks like a yarrow. That one also does really well. So
I planted both, and the Tetra's the one that didn't make it.
okay. Yeah,
I
you're gonna
know.
I think if you plant that in the fall and then try
I
to
did.
overwinter it, you might have better success.
I planted it in the fall, but then we
Oh.
had that like crazy winter blast, and it's the one that didn't make it. And here's the
Oh,
thing, is
okay.
that it's gonna need me to cover it.
Yeah.
Um, it's not staying on the farm, so I will keep I'll
Yeah,
keep
that's not
just
necessarily high
so
tunnel real estate type of flower,
no,
so
yeah. And I'm not gonna I don't think I'm gonna mess with really anything that requires me to do a low tunnel. Like, I'm just not doing it. I don't
I
have the
totally
time for
agree.
that. Okay, foxgloves were great. I will say like I'm not like the best grower of foxgloves. Like I don't feel like mine weren't we don't have our tunnel closed yet. We're still like working on building our tunnel because we just do it as we have time. And our foxgloves are like on the shorter side than like they're not those like massive like 4 to 5 foot tunnel grown. But I don't care. I think that they work better, like the smaller ones for like hand-tied work that like florists are going to do or for a retail bouquet. I loved them. They sold really well to florists. Like they liked them. They ordered multiple weeks, so clearly they were like good with the quality for the price point because they same florists were ordering them over and over again from us. I figured out I don't particularly love Foxy just because it does get really tall, and so I think we're sticking with maybe Camelot, I think is the one that we liked. But yeah, they sold really well to florists. I tried straight bunches of them in the farm stand, kind of like how you would do like a straight bunch of snapdragons. The straight bunches of foxgloves didn't sell, so people don't love them maybe as much retail, but they've sold really well to florists. They are my daughter's favorite flower, so I will always continue to grow them.
Yeah, I find that foxglove, there's kind of this on the shorter side or on the taller side is going to do really well for you. This in between, it's a little bit hard to use them unless if you have them for a specific type of event work. Our growers at the co-op grow massive foxglove. I mean, there was one where the foxglove was literally bending in the caravan that they were transporting in because that's used for like a statement type of piece at an event. But foxglove sells really, really well for us to florists. For me, I don't think I'm actually going to grow foxglove next year. They are really prolific for me. They pump out a lot of blooms. But to your point, Jordon, I find that they sell okay in retail. They're fine in mixed bouquets, but there's better real estate that I could be using my land for instead of foxglove, because I'm never going to grow foxglove as well as my fellow co-op growers. And look, I don't need to add to more foxglove that they're already growing really, really well. Yeah. So that's one crop that I'm taking out. But I will tell you that I kept foxy foxglove in my little patch for 2 years. Super, super prolific. Second year, I've gotten over 80, 90 stems out of that small area. And we're talking about like an 8-foot area. So if you can sell, if you can use it in mixed bouquets, I highly recommend it. Just make sure you're looking for a variety that flowers in the first year. I bought pink gin seeds, not even thinking that they weren't hybridized to bloom in first year. And of course, they bloom in second year. So Camelot and Foxy that we just talked about, both bloom first year.
There's like one other one, but I'm like Dalmatian, yes. And then Kelly has a good point here around foxglove is toxic. So that's the other reason why I also don't want to grow foxglove, because it's one of those things where when you put it into a retail bouquet, I sell at a country store. Now I have to put a sticker to say, do not eat, keep away from pets, right? And obviously that sticker instills a little bit of fear. I put that sticker on this time of year because I have lilies, and that's obviously very toxic to animals. But the fact of the matter is we all grow a lot of flowers that are toxic. It's a part of education, but to the extent that it may not make sense for you to grow something like a foxglove because you have something else that's better and it's toxic, then it's like an extra checkbox to validate, why am I growing it, right? So that's kind of where I went back and forth in spring. Like, I know, like, we're going to keep growing them just because we already have a row of them in the tunnel and I'm going to perennialize them. But honestly, for the space, snapdragons sell just as well. I grew them pretty good this year in comparison to how I have prior years. And I think that we can honestly, even though they're like a lower price point per stem on the snapdragons, they're also a lower cost per plug. So I don't know. I go back and forth between those two of like.
Yeah. And I know that people often say that snaps are like one of the most profitable crops. I don't often see that in comparison to other crops like foxglove. My personal experience is that I actually think foxglove is more profitable because how many stems one plant can produce and the fact that it can perennialize. So of course you can keep snaps in and they might rebloom, but foxglove is a lot hardier for those of us in a little bit cooler zones.
I think for us this year, I think snaps were more profitable for us, even though I was charging a higher price on the foxgloves, but my foxgloves were first year. So maybe in following years, if I'm getting more stems off of them, then maybe that would switch. But if I think about the space, I'm doing the space comparison, and I probably could have planted our foxgloves tighter. That's my issue, is I have them at 9 inches right now. And so space wise, the snaps were definitely more profitable for us.
I think 9 inches is actually good for perennializing because they get really, really beefy in second year. Yeah. So I think that's good that you did 9 inches. The price differential for us when we wholesale between foxglove and snapdragon is probably anywhere from 50 cents up to $2, depending on how tall that foxglove can get. I mean,
Yeah.
some of our primo foxglove that's really, really tall is over $3 a stem. And I would say on average, you're looking at like $1.85 a stem wholesale for foxglove
Mhm.
versus snapdragons is usually around like $1.50-ish.
Yep.
So that gives you an idea of the pricing differential. Is that
Exactly.
similar to how you've been pricing,
Yeah,
Jordon?
that's exactly very, very similar. Snapdragon's spot on. We're not like quite as high on foxgloves, but Jesse's always like a tad bit higher than we are just because different regionally. But yeah, I would say there's like a $1 differential between like snaps and foxgloves for us. But also the plug cost is higher. But the fact that you can perennialize them, it does make a difference. So that's kind of, we'll see how I feel in year 2.
Next flower.
All right, so we grew Gadesha. Have you ever grown that?
I have not grown it, but I know Lisa Mason-Siegler loves it. So I'm always like,
I
should I
know.
grow Gudasha?
I know. Okay, so I just got like one tray of them. It would cost me like $40. They were amazing. They came in on a week. They came in the week after. So they're like the very last cool flower that's going to bloom for you. So they came in like the week after Mother's Day. Completely worth it because it made it to where I could keep my farm stand open that week because they served as kind of like, they just kind of like look a little bit like tropical, but they served as a focal when we didn't have any other like focals in bloom. They have like a ton of like buds on one stem, and so you harvest them like when the buds are like just starting to color up, and then they pop open pretty quickly. And you know, I threw like 3 or 4 of those into a wrap bouquet, and it made it to where we could keep our stand open. Absolutely, completely worth it. I think that I ordered like 2 trays for next year, so just like slightly increasing, not a whole lot more. I guess that's like double, but I only grew 1 this year.
I think we need to talk about this point a little bit more because you were able to keep your farm stand open every single week, right? Since
there was 1 week that I didn't open because it was when I like was just like absolutely migraine, could not
yeah, but that was your
function.
health issue. That wasn't because you didn't have flowers.
I've kept our farm stand open every week.
Since like when did you guys open? You guys opened in March.
Yeah, March was like the second weekend of March.
Second week, yeah. So Jordan's been open for basically 3 months at this point, which is bonkers because everyone experiences that focal gap or just the flower gap, especially in May. And I know in Oklahoma, you guys all struggle to get enough flowers to make mixed bouquets, but Jordan was able to do it in basically year 1 on this farm, right? So year 2 of flower farming, but year 1 on this farm. And I think that that is a really, really like great achievement that is probably under recognized.
Yeah. And I think there's like 2 different schools of thought. There's like the grow a lot of a little, and there's the thought of like grow a little of a lot. And so I think it's funny because I kind of like shift seasonally. So like summertime, I'm very much like grow a lot of a little. We're very dahlia focused on our farm. But in the springtime, I think for us, in order to keep our farm stand open, the growing like so many different crops makes it to where I can keep our farm stand open. And so we grew very little of that Gadesha, but because we did, I was able to keep our farm stand open and our bouquets looked great that week. And it was something that I was able to market that, guys. Like I marketed, hey, this is the only weekend we're going to have this flower and y'all have got to see this. So if you want to see this flower and get to experience it, you have to come to the farm stand this weekend because we won't have it again. Because we're literally just going to have it for these 2 days. But that me spending $40 on that plug tray to plant them, absolutely worth it, you know, because if we have our farm stand open for a weekend, we can make $1,000. So completely worth it to plant that.
It's such an important point. And even myself coming into flower farming, since I didn't have any flower background, it's just not something I thought about in terms of how strategic flower farming is. And we talked about moonshot farms before. So Rebecca, who runs it, she often talks about running a flower farm as playing a game of chess. You always have to be a couple of moves ahead of the next growing season. You've got to be planning. And it really is this complicated game where your thoughts and how you operate during one season might look completely different from another season. And so I think that one of the most important things of running a business is the ability to have some level of consistency. So even if you can't pump out a giant amount of volume, what you can do is make up for that in terms of consistency. And that's what Jordan's doing here, right? So even on a single weekend, let's say she's selling anywhere from 40 to 60 bouquets, she's able to keep her farm stand open because she's planning appropriately a full year in advance to think about in spring, I'm going to need a lot more types of flowers than I would in the summer, where the dahlias are going to take me through maybe 2-3 months, right? So it's just something to be cognizant about, especially for anyone who is just starting out.
Yeah, because I feel like in the spring it's very like, okay, I'm gonna have this one for 2 weeks. I'm gonna have this one for 2 weeks. I'm gonna have this one because in Oklahoma everything is so fast, guys. Because like our heat here is just so crazy and so intense, and so it just makes it to where like we don't have crops for a long time, and so you have to be really cognizant of like, or, sorry, I changed pivot. Or what if you have a crop failure, right? Like, if you're just banking on this like list of, 10 crops and I'm only going to grow these, what happens when you have a crop failure? So I don't know. For me, I like the security of having more crops on our farm. Now, I'm not saying grow 50 things because I think that is incredibly difficult to manage, but on our farm, we grow like 30. But that makes it to where like when my ranunculus failed, because it did this year, we had Sweet William. And while that is not a comparable crop, it served the purpose of a focal in our bouquets for probably 4 weeks when our ranunculus failed. And I still made sales and my customers were none the wiser. So, that worked for us. And so I just think it's the importance of like really thinking about, if you're only going to grow zinnias in summer and you're not going to do zinnias and dahlias, like what happens if your dahlia crop fails, or what happens if your zinnia crop fails, and if you're only growing one of them. And so I think being able to have options can be important.
That's actually what Rebecca just posted from Moonshot a couple of days ago. She talked about the importance of diversifying, especially at a bigger scale type of farm that they have. They also got crop insurance, actually. So I didn't see the details on that. I actually, you know what? I think it was in Growing for Market. She had an article, but basically they were saying how every single year, at least in the first few years, they've had a lot of crop wipeout issues, so just crop failures in one specific crop, and it was the ability to have something else to fall back on that really saved them. And they do lots of big farmer markets, so like that's really important.
Yeah, and it just being able to be consistent with your customers, I think, is hugely important. So okay,
well, so you talk about ranunculus. Do you want to talk a little bit about what happened with the ranunculus?
Yeah, so our ranunculus got thrips. And it's funny, it's actually my 17-year-old daughter found them. It's funny because she knew what thrips were from our old farm because our roses got them last year. And so she was out there harvesting for herself for her prom bouquet. And she called me and said, "Hey mom, I think the ranunculus have that bug." And I was like, no, like there's bugs on the farm. It's fine. And then I went and looked and like, sure enough, like the ranunculus had thrips. Like what a disappointment. So hugely disappointing. And thrips are super hard to get under control. I mean, Jesse knows, like once you have them, it's just incredibly hard. And
like set fire to the farm. I'm kidding.
I know. So what we're doing is we're going to mow down everything in our high tunnel. We're going to put plastic down on the ground in the high tunnel, and we're going to solarize the high tunnel this summer. And so we'll actually probably do that next week. And we've just been so busy getting the dahlias on the ground, we haven't had a chance, but that is our plan. And so, because I have an off-farm job, I have the privilege of not having to sell the crop once something like that happens. And I do recognize that that's absolutely a privilege that I have. And so we did just choose to not sell them once they got infested with thrips rather than trying to resolve the issue.
Yeah, and I think that it's a really, really smart idea to solarize the high tunnel. I think a lot of times beginner flower farmers look at growers with high tunnels and say, oh, I wish I had a high tunnel. And let me tell you, I have no desire to get a high tunnel because even though it is a great season extension, it comes with its host of challenges and just additional tasks that you have to undertake to make sure that you are growing things in a way that you can have stems to sell. You are artificially creating a different kind of environment. So I think that once you have a high tunnel, you have to be really on top of pest and disease management because things will spread so much more quickly. So for anyone who's on the fence about getting something like that, make sure you do your due diligence so you know what you're getting yourself into. It's not rainbows and butterflies.
And we do plan to do IPM next year for the high tunnel, so I have it on my schedule that April we're going to bring some mites in, some predatory mites to help with the thrips, because I just think that that is a battle that we will have.
I actually think you need to bring them earlier.
You think earlier?
Oh yeah, like you've got to be bringing them at a point where those mites, ladybugs, whatever you bring in, might be on the brink of dying because it's still so cold in there. But like they need to be getting to work, and it's like this is what I'm saying. You know, when you want to do things organically, it's a cadence. You have to be organized. You have to have scheduled shipments of these things. So I probably start with a nematode drench sometime in like February for you guys in Oklahoma, and then I would start bringing in the beneficials maybe March. So, but I think that's something you could talk about with whoever you're buying from, and they should be able to give you a good recommendation.
Yeah. And there's so much good information out there, like on ASCFG, you know, from people who have experienced it. I think it was actually like Rebecca that had posted like what she had to do. So I like pulled all that information, put it all in my notes so that we know what to do next year, because everything in farming is just learning. And so, you know, we learned our lesson this year and we will be prepared for it next year.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one comment in here saying straw flower is my everything because it does so well, sells online to craft markets, are blooming. And I would agree that straw flower is really great, especially if you are using it for things like wreaths. You can dry it. I love flowers that have an extended, we'll call it harvest window, those that dry well. Straw flower just doesn't do that well at the cooperative for us. I mean, we can sell it. It's just not a high volume type of crop. So I'm actually not growing it this year. I grew it in year 1 and year 2. I just wanted the space to experiment with some other stuff. But have you grown straw flower, Jordon?
No, and the only reason that I haven't, well, I don't particularly like love the look of it. Actually, you know, it's funny, like when you like start flower farming, there's flowers that you're just like meh about, but like actually I kind of think it's cute now and I kind of want to try to grow it. But I had talked to a lot of flower farmers here and they were just like, it takes so long and all these like complaints about it that I just have like never chosen to grow it. But
it is prolific once it gets established and the cooler weather starts hitting. I would say I cut from it for like a full month.
Yeah. So my thing is like we're so, and if anyone doesn't know this, like our main crop is dahlias on our farm. And so it's like once the weather cools, our dahlias just go crazy. And so like I'm really just
you don't need another crop.
At that point. I don't need another crop. And so like dahlias and any like filler, so like maybe that would work good as like a fall filler for us to add in with the dahlias.
We're probably going to do a live on dahlias, but Jordon, give everyone a sneak peek of just how many dahlias you're planting this year.
So many dahlias, you guys. So we have 2 dahlia fields that we're putting in. So the first field we put in April, and so 2,000 fit into a field, and the second field we started putting in last night for like fall blooms, and so we're not putting another 2,000 into that one only because our order got canceled. So we're putting in, I don't know, I think total we'll have around 3,000. My numbers keep changing because orders keep getting canceled, so but I think we'll have around 3,000 total dahlias, which is insane.
That's nuts.
But we really battled weeds last year, and so we're putting them all into landscape fabric, which is just so time consuming to plant into fabric versus like we had a middle buster last year and then we're able to just like rake back over and it was so fast. So planting is incredibly slow, so just like very labor intensive, which has honestly gone into like my what are we going to sell our price per stem this year, because it's going to be higher because it is just so much higher like labor wise.
Do you find there to be a demand for dahlias where you are, retail?
Yeah, so so retail we will see, but what I will tell you is I'm like constantly putting up like like polls to our customers, and like we have some dahlia lovers that follow me. But I think that that's because you attract the customers that are like similar to you and like your style. And I am a dahlia girl. So when I'm posting that, like, here's our farm, like of those 30 pictures I'm posting that I talked about at the beginning, like 20 of them are dahlia post pictures. And so I think like we have customers that I think will like dahlias. We will see.
I was gonna say it's okay if they don't like them because your florists will buy all of them.
Love them. Yeah, so that's my biggest thing is like we we're shifting our focus to retail, but we still fully intend to wholesale dahlias to our florists as like our main wholesale item that goes to florists. And so our florists love the dahlias because dahlias are really hard to ship in. They're also really hard to grow in Oklahoma because it's so hot here. So we do really well with dahlias.
My mind was blown last year at the cooperative when it was like peak dahlia season. Basically, I would say 80% of what we offer is dahlias. And there was one day where there were so many dahlias that made it to market floor. I was like, there's no way everyone's going to buy these, especially at like $2.50 or $2.50 and $3 a stem. Literally, like all gone by the end of the market. So designers love them. And if you can grow them and you can find event designers, like you will have a market.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I would like go harvest and bring like buckets back, and I wouldn't even make it like back home, and I just like stop by florist shops, and by the time I would get back home, like even ones that I harvested these purple ones because they're Conley's favorite and they're not like the best looking, gone. Like I couldn't even make it back home with dahlias. Like some of our like really like deep burgundy to enjoy. So we were moving the dahlias. It would be so interesting this year though, because we planted 2,000 last year, but only like 600 were we harvesting from, and we still had like
because you had an insane amount of stems from just 600.
Yeah.
There's a question here. When you sell dahlias to florists, are they straight bunched by variety color or are they mixed buckets?
No. So good point. Like maybe that's something that we try in the future, but straight bunched by color. Florists are super particular on colors. And so, we have a big focus in like peach, pink, and white this year because that's pretty much with like a sprinkling of like some like creamy yellows. Because that's like what our florists want. But we're definitely selling like by color. They're obvious. This year I'm actually selling like by variety. So it's not even going to be like by color. I'm going to be like, we have, 20 bunches of Linda's baby. Here's a picture of Linda's baby.
Yeah,
so I'm not even
here.
just doing color.
Same here. I would say that we sell more by color. There are some dahlias that are so close in terms of color and habit formation that you can't even tell that they're different varieties. Mm-hmm. So I would say for the bigger types of dinner plate dahlias, usually they're sold in bunches of 5. The balls are usually sold in bunches of 10. I have sold in more mixed type of bunches. I'll be like, this is sorbet type of palette. And so people know at least what they're getting. I find that in general for floor sales as a whole, if you're able to sell by color, you will typically get more bites than if you try to sell a mixed bunch. So even with yarrow, I see that if I can forecast, I'm going to have like 5 bunches of lavender, 5 bunches of apricot. It's going to go a lot faster than mixed type of bunches.
Yeah.
So we're already sorry, go ahead, Jordon.
I would also find that I would do like a purple mix, a peach mix, a pink mix. So I was still saying like a color last year, but allowing myself to like, because our field wasn't as like organized last year as it is this year, I had like different varieties in one row. And so it just made it easier for me to be like, I'm going to go cut all the pink ones we have, and then I'm selling them a pink mix.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to say, like, I agree with what you just said, but because I'm trying to take some pressure off of myself this year, I am selling in mixes this year. And so like right now I have like a peach Cosmo and a pink Cosmo in bloom. And so I posted a picture of both, and I'm selling it as a peach and pink mix because I don't want to have to worry about like, oh, well, I only had 8 stems of this, and so now I can't, make a full 10 stem.
It is incredibly stressful to sell by color.
So, like that is. And so I'll be like pastel mix. And they're still buying it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Follow-up question here is, how many varieties do you have within the 3,000?
3,000. We have less than 20 varieties within the 3,000.
Wow. So that will make it easier to sell to florists.
Yeah, and
Because you look
it's
at a
less
row and
than
you're like,
that.
yes, all of these are the
A
same.
whole row is one variety. In our 2 fields, we can fit 20 rows total. And so eventually it will be 20 varieties. They're just like 2 varieties I couldn't get this year. So I think it'll be 18 varieties.
So we're already at 7 past. Any flowers that you absolutely won't grow again, Jordan?
Oh, flowers I'm not growing again. Bells of Ireland. I just meh. It didn't overwinter well for us. And then like the couple that we had, I harvested them, they wilted, and I'm just like, you're too dramatic for me. I don't want to deal with it. You're not even that great. Like, I'm
Mine
over
are
it.
just starting to take off,
Good
so
luck.
we will see how I feel about Bells of Ireland.
Is this
But
your first time growing
it's
them?
my first time growing them, and I
It was mine
needed
too.
a filler. Like, I needed a
Okay.
good filler, so hopefully they don't wilt on me. And I'm hoping that the florists will also want to buy these. So we'll see how that
Ours
goes.
don't. We never can get any. I'm not the only grower in the area that feels this way. It's like we can't really get them to move to florists. So good luck.
Ugh.
The other thing was corn cockle. I grew it for the first time this year. Like yeah, we sold it. We made our money back off of it. We probably just like broke even on it because I had bought the floret Don Creek seeds. Um, I just didn't love it. That's the 1 week that we had like terrible retail sales compared to other weeks. So I don't think our retail customers loved it. I hated harvesting it. Um, it's a no for me. Do you
Did
grow it?
you try selling them to florists?
Yeah, I sold them to florists and that's how I made my money back.
Okay. Because florists usually love them.
I know.
But they're a pain to harvest.
You're paying to harvest.
I
And I think my thing is like some of them will look good and then some of them don't look good. And so it's like maybe if I had caught it during like the peak harvest, but it was like it's so rainy here at that time of year. And so it's like your florists want the white ones, but then like it's rainy and they look bad.
Yeah,
It's just
Floret donated some seed, including corn cockle, to our co-op.
Mhm.
So I grew a small patch just to see what it's like. I think there's merit in just growing a variety, just so that you know how it grows for
Yeah.
you and all that stuff. So I'm growing a small patch just to see. I'm not loving it so far. I'm finding that I would need to net them, which
Yes.
is a big no for me. So
Like no, I can't even imagine having those netted. Like, ugh.
I mean, you could
I
probably get
think
away
you
with corralling
corral.
them, but
You could
yeah,
corral
like
them.
so we focused a lot on Jordan's stuff just because Jordan had so much more than me during the spring. My spring stuff is finally starting to come in, and I would just say that high level for me, I'm going to have more of a focus on spring next year because I focus so much on winter tulips and even selling bulbs that came at the opportunity cost of not really preparing well enough for spring for me. So my stuff is just starting to come in, but yarrow, man, guys, like I don't know why I didn't just triple whatever I had. I literally cannot. I can't sell enough, or what's the phrase? Like I can't. Every single stem that I harvest is basically getting sold, and it's getting
Yeah.
sold at a price point that makes it like just it like why am I growing other things? So I was actually
Exactly.
showing.
That's actually what I was about to say. It's funny because earlier I was like diversify, but it's like you're like you should
Well,
just
this is also from the experience that yarrow does really, really well where I am particularly. It is, I mean, knock on wood, like pretty pest resistant. Yeah, like there are pests on there, but there's so many more beneficials attracted to it. The other day, I sold a bunch to a florist. She sent a video. She was like, I just worked with your yarrow. It was so nice. It was so sturdy. I showed it to my husband, Eric, and I was like, how much do you
oh
think this bunch sold for to a florist? He goes, $5. And I looked at him. I was like, first of all, we don't sell anything below $1 per stem.
yeah, come on.
So it's not
That's a
$5. And I said $14.50. And his jaw dropped and he goes, why aren't you growing more of that? I was like, yeah, good
Exactly.
question.
And it's like it's so easy to start from seed.
Exactly. And
You
meanwhile,
don't
there's
have to
other
cover it in
stuff
the
that I'm
freezer.
growing that's hard to push. So, like
Yeah.
transparently, lilies are one of them. I'm giving this year as kind of the final push for the florist around lilies because the transparency side of it is that most of my, or actually more than all of my bulb costs are covered because I resell them. So I have the opportunity to take a loss on these lilies, and I want to try to do mass marketing to see if I can move the needle with our florists on lilies. I have no problem moving them retail, but the problem is I don't really have a retail channel this time of year, and that is deliberate. And I hope if there's one takeaway you can have from what we talked about earlier is that there is a lot of time and effort to building a local following for retail. retail. Like the amount of time that Jordon spends every single week is double digit hours. And I recognize that if you want to do it right, that's the amount of time it takes. Like I don't have the ability to go down that retail route. So therefore, I have a product that is a little bit more attuned for the retail sector that I'm not really focusing on. And I'm trying to, I guess, go against the waves to push it to designers, because lilies are actually really great flower for designers. A lot of designers don't recognize that. It is a crop that no one else at my cooperative is growing. So that's why I'm putting like this effort in there. But if it turns out that my florists just don't want lilies or want a significantly smaller amount, it's not like I'm not selling them. I am, just not in the quantities that I want, then I'm going to pull back on lilies.
Yeah. And you find that they move really well for you retail?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like despite the fact that people are like they're toxic, cats, like there is a following of people who love lilies.
Love lilies.
And then the lilies that we grow, because there's so many hybridized varieties, you can breathe a fragrance out of them. I would say 85% I grow non-fragrant lilies. They have no problem moving retail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Today will probably be one of my first like pushes. And so I've had them in the stand, but I didn't advertise them because I just had like 3 bouquets once. And they moved the slowest in our stand.
Oh, interesting.
So
I think if you mix them well in bouquets, and you have to have some that are like starting to open a little bit, they will do well. But they also really enhance the vase life because of the multiple buds. You can typically get at least 10 days out of a single stem of a lily. So that's also a selling point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
is there anything else on your side that we wanted to hit on? Because I feel like we just stayed on mine.
Yeah. I mean, the only other, like, I think people are starting to see, if you've been watching my videos, is my tendency now to go to perennials. And I would say that this spring really hammered home why that's a good idea. So I feel, number one, perennials are really a lot more reliable in the spring, but also the fact that, like, so a video that I'm working on for next week is actually a week in the life of a side hustle flower farmer and content creator. And what you guys are going to see is actually the amount of time that the content creation takes. I just don't have the ability to go outside and continuing to plant annuals, turn the beds. So I am going to be putting in a lot more perennials. In fact, I would say that most of the plugs that I've put in this year are perennials. So I'm really doubling down on that. One perennial that's been doing pretty well for me right now is sea holly. Second year sea holly is ridiculous. It's like ridiculously good in a good way. And you guys will see that in my video. But I've been now able to sell just straight bunches of the really, really big, thick sea holly. I'm selling that for $1.85 a stem. And even that, I actually think it's a really good price wholesale. And then now some of the side shoots off of those central stems are getting long enough. And I'm selling that about like $1.15 a stem and using that in mixed bouquets. So one stem can actually fetch me $1.85 plus $1.15, multiple $1.15s actually.
What's the plug price on those?
It's the most expensive plug price. I'm not sure what they are. I paid for a local grower to grow them for me organically from plug.
That's right.
So I have about 70 or 60 plants that made it. A lot self-reseed. You need to give them a lot of space. But the point is that if you have a retail outlet and a floristry outlet, I think they can actually move on both sides.
Well, yeah.
Perennials are where it's at. Yeah. So
yeah, I agree. I'm clearly heavily investing into perennials, though I am slowing down a teensy bit. We didn't talk about this, but I'm just going to try to really get like our weed pressure a little bit more under control before I put in like a whole lot more perennials. So.
Yeah, and I think you have enough right now that's going to tide you over at least for the next couple of years before you need to scale up again. So you're in a really good place right now. I am still trying to figure out what perennials I can put outside of the deer fence that the deer aren't going to eat. It's fawning season right now, so probably not a good time to figure that out because they're literally eating everything. But I'm getting there. I mean, there's stuff that I put out that they haven't eaten, like not ageratum. What's it called? Oh my God, it's the Agistache. They're not eating. I put in Stairway to Heaven, Polonium, I think is the scientific name. They're not really eating that. So there's a couple of things. Echinacea, for the most part, they're not eating.
Okay.
My tiny Veronica.
I planted some echinacea the other day. We have like 60, like before. And then I planted 128 white the other day. It's gone.
It's gone? What does that even mean?
Like I don't know.
Like something ate them?
Where did it go? I'm like, there's nothing there now.
Oh no.
There's like a few sporadically. And I'm like,
Ugh,
I don't know, but there's not like empty holes where something pulled it. So I need to like go investigate, but I don't know. It's not there.
that
I
just
was just like, well, I
sucks.
was like giving a farm tour to one of my friends, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to look at that later. I don't know. 'Cause
I
I
feel
don't know
like
if it
the
was like,
first week and a half to 2 weeks is this critical time period for anything that you put into the ground because it has
I
to
think,
root. If it doesn't root, it can get kicked out.
yeah, I don't know where they went, and I like planted them, then neglected them for the week. So that was like
Yeah.
the first time it had been like 2 weeks, and I like looked and I was like, oh, and it's gone now though.
Yeah.
So,
So
but we planted phlox too.
oh, phlox, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I just put in one plant of phlox and I didn't realize it wasn't deer resistant. So for those of you who don't know, don't put phlox in a place that deer can get to because it's like candy. I was going to say, we are way over. Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone, for joining. Thank you, Jordon, for your generous time as
That's
always.
fun.
This will be this will be on as a permanent recording. So let us know in the comments if you have any other questions. We clearly have a lot of other topics that we will be talking about, including dahlias. But also let us know if there are any topics that you want us to talk about, because we are more than happy to make lives based off of what you guys are interested in. But yeah, I hope everyone has a great rest of their weekend, and we'll see you in the next live. All right. Wow. That I would